Hi, in this lesson we're going to be looking at geological time. We've been looking at uniformitarianism and how that gives us an idea that geological time is vast. But as geologists we need to understand how geological time is divided up, and particularly some of the key events that have shaped the Earth we live on. I've shown you a picture here of the Grand Canyon in America because it's a spectacular slice through hundreds of millions of years of geological time. But let's get stuck into to understanding something a bit more about geological time. We're working on pages 14 and 15 of your Theme 1 booklets. You'll also need a geological timescale taken from our Understanding Geology textbook. Okay then, let's go. The first job I'd like you to do is to think about some of the main events that have punctuated life on Earth. Now I've given you a list of these in the table at the top of page 14. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put these in rank order. I'd like you to think about which things must have happened first and which things must have happened more recently. I'd like you to number them with the oldest event ranked 1 and the youngest event, the one that's happened most recently, with a 10. Okay? Work through that. It's really about you thinking through the sequence of things, which things must have come first. If you want, do it in pencil in case you want to make changes later. But don't stress too much and don't worry about looking it up in advance. Just try and work out what you think the rank order is. This is the table I'd like you to fill in. So your first job then is to complete that column on the left for your age rank. Okay. The second question I'd like you to tackle looks at the geological timescale on page 15. This is a timescale that we use throughout the course, and I'd like you to fill in some of the blanks. You'll notice the boxes for the era and the periods, which are different ways that we can split up geological time, are largely blank. I've put in the top and bottom ones there, but I'd like you to sort out the rest. The words for this you'll find at the bottom of page 14. Use the geological column, the geological timescale from the textbook to help you out with this. Once you've done that, have a think about there's a difference in the actual ages here. The textbook has different ages from the timescale I've given you here. This timescale is the most recent one. This is the one that we now use. Why do you think the ones in your GCSE textbook are different? Anyway, what I'd like you to do, press pause now, have a go at those questions. Okay, so questions 7A and 7B. Have a go at those now. Okay then, let's see what you've come up with. So I asked you to rank these events in order. Let me show you what the actual rank order is. So these are the different evolutionary events. If you start from the bottom there, the first one is the first evidence of life, 3,850 million years ago. write these numbers into the column that says age of event on your table. The oldest fossils we have are about 3.5 billion years old, 3,500 million years old. The first soft-bodied animals we get traces of about 900 million years ago. A really important evolutionary event called the Cambrian explosion, far more about that in theme 11, happened about 530 million years ago. The first land plants, and about the same sort of time the first fish evolved, about 480 million years ago. The first reptiles we find 350 million years ago. The mammals and the dinosaurs evolved about the same time, about 220 million years ago. The first birds appeared 150 million years ago. The first hominids 5.2 million years ago. Those are the early humans. And modern humans, me and you, 0.1 million years ago. So we should have now those ranks written correctly on your table. And I'd also like to make sure that you've written in the ages of each of these events. Okay, for question B then, I ask you to complete the geological column. So you should now have a timescale that looks like this. So we've got our three eras, the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. Notice how I always start reading from the bottom going up. It's what geologists do. The periods then, the Paleozoic, or the Precambrian period then, the most recent one of those is the Proterozoic. In the Paleozoic, we go Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous and Permian. The Mesozoic era is the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. The Cenozoic then, we have the Paleogene and the Neogene, and finally the Quaternary. So you should have now a complete timescale that looks like this. What I'd now like you to do is, going back to the table that you filled in for question 7a, I'd like you to identify the periods that each of the events that is listed in that table actually happened. And I'd like you to write the name of that period in that right hand column in the table on page 14. So press pause now and fill that in. Okay then, let's see what you've come up with. So I ask you to fill in the age of the events from the list I gave you. So if we fill these in, we should have a table that looks just like that. And if we then work out which periods these points in time took place in, these are the correct answers. So the Cambrian explosion fairly obviously happened in the Cambrian. The oldest fossils are in the Archean, or the Precambrian if you like. Modern humans evolved in the Quaternary. The first reptiles appeared in the Carboniferous. Mammals and dinosaurs evolved during the Triassic period. The first land plants and fish during the Ordovician. The earliest hominids back in the Neogene. Soft-bodied animals evolved in the Proterozoic or the late Precambrian. First evidence of life is way back in the early Archean or Precambrian. And the first birds evolved in the Jurassic. You may also want to have a go at the digging deeper activity that goes with the geological column. Piecing more of these extinction and evolution events into the geological timescale. If you've had a go at that, let's have a look at some of the answers. So, let's just sort this out a little bit. Okay. First of all, in red, we've got some extinction events. These are fairly major extinction events, and notice how each of these occurs at the end of an era. Eras are marked by major extinction events. If we put in some of the other geological events, and I selected these because these are ones that have had a particular impact on Britain's geology. So we've got Gondwana, a supercontinent in the south, forming 500 million years ago. Snowdonia, caused by a plate collision 425 million years ago. Coal swamps 310 million years ago. Pangaea came together about 280 million years ago. And then started splitting up about 100 million years ago, with the Atlantic Ocean starting to open up. The last volcanic activity in Britain was about 55 million years ago, and 2 million years ago we had the start of ice ages here in Wales. Okay, as we see the sunset over the Grand Canyon, we can see that the geological timescale helps us put events in order. If you like, it's the page numbers on the storybook of the Earth's history. We will be looking at how we can actually work these out. But for now, if we start to get familiar with the timescale, it's going to help us. However, for GCSE, you will always get a data sheet that gives you that timescale. It's not something you have to learn, but it is something you need to be familiar with. Okay. To wrap up theme 1, we still need to think about the rock cycle a bit more, but that's for another lesson. I'll see you then.